Welcome to Mind Set in Stone podcasts, where we dive deep into the most compelling books on the shelf. Join hosts Dave and Poppy as they uncover the stories, themes, and ideas that shape our understanding and inspire curiosity. Get ready to explore the big ideas that leave a lasting impact. Let's get started.
All right, ready for this? We're diving deep into Wishes Fulfilled by Wayne Dyer. You guys picked this one.
Oh yeah, those are good.
So Dyer, he's all about we're not just waiting for luck to strike, right? We're actually creating our reality. But in this book, he kind of goes next level, talking about aligning with a higher consciousness to make those wishes happen.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff he talks about, meeting people with almost, supernatural experiences.
Yeah.
And his own healing journey, pretty wild.
Yeah, Dyer, he definitely pushes the boundaries. A lot of people found his work, a little too, out there for them.
Right.
But he was super popular. Everyone knows him. What I find interesting about Wishes Fulfilled, though, is it's not just self-help stuff. He's got philosophy mixed in, personal stories, spiritual teachings.
Yeah, it's all blended together.
And his main argument, I think, is that we get so stuck in the everyday world, like the physical stuff, that we forget about our true potential.
Okay, so this whole self-concept makeover thing.
Dyer talks about the outer self, how we present to everyone else, versus the inner self concept, which is how we feel about what we're capable of.
Right.
He uses this analogy, right, where it's the outer self is the clothes we wear, but the inner self is how we feel about what we could be.
Oh, I like that.
And then he's got all these examples about how if we have these limiting beliefs about intelligence, talents, even health, it's we're using those as ingredients in a recipe.
Right.
So we're basically baking a very specific kind of reality based on what we think is possible.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because Dyer's saying we're often unconsciously limiting the ingredients for that inner self. Think about how many times you've said, I'm just bad at math, or I could never run a marathon.
Oh, all the time.
That's a self-fulfilling prophecy right there. You're basically telling your mind to make it happen.
Whoa, okay, so I'm creating the story in my head, and my subconscious is just taking notes. And Dyer's point is, even if we can't control everything that happens to us, expanding that inner self concept, that's huge. If we want different results, you got to change the ingredients.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So getting those ingredients right for that inner self, but then Dyer throws in this quote from William Blake that honestly blew my mind.
Which one?
What is now proved was once only imagined. So is he saying just sit around and daydream and that's it?
Well, he makes a distinction between just random daydreams and what he calls a healthy imagination.
Oh, okay.
And he actually gives some rules for how to use your imagination effectively.
I do love a good set of rules. What kind of rules?
Some are kind of surprising. He says, don't dwell on the past, which, makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But he also says, don't get too caught up in your current limitations. And the big one, he says imagination should be aligned with what he calls godlike thinking. Tapping into a higher purpose, not just your ego wants.
So not just winning the lottery, but thinking, okay, if I did win, how would I use it to do good?
Yeah. He even tells a story about attracting money when he was just a teacher. But his goal was always to share his message with more people.
So checking those motives, am I visualizing success just for me, or is there a bigger purpose here?
Exactly. And that leads right into Dyer's focus on the phrase, I am. He thinks those two words are super powerful spiritually.
Yeah. He even connects it to, God's name in the Bible, right?
Moses in the burning bush. Remember that?
Yeah. When God says, I am that I am, it's Dyer saying those words are the key to, unlocking something within us.
Right. It's bold, for sure.
Yeah.
But it connects to this whole idea of affirmations, how the language we use literally shapes our reality.
Right. So instead of saying, ugh, I'm so bad at public speaking, it's I am a confident speaker.
But then the question becomes, is Dyer being literal about God here? Or is it more like a universal force?
Yeah, that's a good question. He even tells this story about a little girl who wouldn't say I'm sick because she just intuitively got it.
Interesting.
Makes you think about how often we use I am to limit ourselves without even realizing it.
Oh, for sure.
But then Dyer gets into some of his experiences. And let's just say They're not exactly your average Tuesday afternoon.
Oh yeah, some of those are pretty wild, like photos where orbs appear on his shoulders, or that long-distance healing thing with the Brazilian healer where his watch supposedly stops.
Okay, that's where I'm like, hold on a sec. Am I supposed to believe all this literally?
I think that's the cool thing about Dyer, though. He presents these experiences, but he doesn't tell you what to think. He emphasizes feeling subjective experience.
Okay, yeah.
Whether we agree with him or not, that's a good question to ask.
Hmm.
What can we learn from his belief in those things?
Hmm.
What does it tell us about the potential of the human mind,
And that kind of leads to what I think is the biggest takeaway from the whole book, this idea that feeling is the key.
Oh, absolutely.
Dyer says it's not enough to just think about what we want. We have to feel it. Like the wish is already fulfilled.
He makes this great analogy about learning to drive stick shift. At first, it's all mental, but once you get the feeling of it,
Yeah.
your subconscious takes over and you're just driving. He even applies this to his leukemia diagnosis.
Oh.
Instead of focusing on fear, he chose to feel healthy, vibrant, alive.
So it's not just about wanting something, it's about really embodying that feeling. But how do we do that when our reality feels so different from what we're trying to create?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's exactly what we'll be unpacking as we keep going with Wishes Fulfilled.
Yeah, it's a practice. It really is. And one thing Dyer really emphasizes is like trusting the process, even when, doesn't seem like things are going your way. Oh yeah, trust the process. That's like everywhere these days, right? But I have to admit, I'm like the queen of impatience. So we've got our inner self ingredients sorted. We're using our imagination and we're feeling the wish fulfilled. But like, when does it actually show up?
The age-old question of timing. This is where letting go comes in.
It seems so backwards. Like we do all this work, getting clear on what we want, visualizing, feeling it, and then we're just supposed to let go.
It's not about giving up, though. It's more like releasing the need to control how it happens or when.
Okay.
Dyer's argument is that when we try to micromanage the universe, we actually block the flow, the abundance.
Okay, so it's like, I don't know, when you're learning to swim and you try to fight the water instead of just like relaxing into it.
Perfect analogy. He uses the example of planting a seed. We can't force it to grow, right?
Yeah.
We prepare the soil, we water it, sunlight. But then we got to trust the natural process.
Okay, I get that in theory. But how do you actually let go? Like emotionally, that's the tough part.
It's a continuous practice. It's about being present, trusting that maybe the universe has a plan that's even better than what we imagined.
So maybe instead of obsessing over every detail, I should just like focus on enjoying the journey.
Exactly. And be open to surprises. Dyer says the universe often has those in store.
Speaking of surprises, some of the stories in Wishes Fulfilled are pretty wild, like that one about Brenda who wrote to Dyer after his lecture.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. That's a great example of how Dyer, he tells these like unbelievable stories, but he doesn't force you to interpret them a certain way.
Right, like she sees him transform into St. Francis and Lao Tzu while he's speaking.
All right.
And then she meets this woman who tells her she's glowing with light, and then the woman disappears. Come on, is Dyer secretly a shapeshifter or something?
Well, he doesn't claim to have any, magical powers. He's open about saying these experiences are up for interpretation.
Okay, so maybe it's not about whether we believe it literally, but more like being open to the idea that reality might be like a lot weirder than we think.
Exactly.
Okay, so open minds. What about that story with Nicolette, the young woman with facial paralysis?
Oh, Nicolette's story is powerful. Yeah. She had Bell's palsy, and nothing seemed to be helping.
Yeah, and she's just like stressed out of her mind on top of it all.
Right. And then by chance, she meets Dyer, and he immediately focuses on her state of mind. Tells her to repeat affirmations, visualize herself being healed. And then he insists she goes to see his friend Kate, who's a craniosacral therapist.
Okay, for those who don't know, craniosacral therapy, it's like this gentle touch thing, right?
Yeah, it's about releasing restrictions in the craniosacral system, which is like the bones of the skull, spine, sacrum.
It's supposed to improve the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, which is super important for the nervous system.
And Nicolette's like, I don't know about this. But then during the session, she visualizes healing energy flowing into her face.
And it works. Her paralysis starts to improve, and within a few weeks, she's healed. I mean, amazing, right?
It's incredible. Now, obviously, not everyone with Bell's palsy should just ditch their doctor and go straight for craniosacral therapy.
Right, but it does make you think.
It highlights the potential of alternative healing, especially when combined with a positive mindset, belief, in the body's ability to heal.
Okay, so we've got, like, these extraordinary stories, but Dyer also gets into some deep spiritual stuff. The I Am discourses really intrigued me. It's these channeled teachings from Saint Germain, an ascended master.
Yeah, it gets a little mystical there, but the basic message is about recognizing our own divinity, the creative power we all have.
And this ties back to the I Am thing, right?
Exactly. Dyer thinks by using those words, especially with positive affirmations, we're tapping into the same energy that created the universe.
So instead of I'm so stressed, it's I am calm and capable. But isn't that like a little egotistical?
It could be, but Dyer's emphasis is on aligning with our God selves, which, to him, is about love, compassion, serving a higher purpose.
Okay, so not about me, but about tapping into something bigger.
Yeah.
But how do we know if we're really doing that or just fooling ourselves?
Dyer says, look at your actions. Are your desires coming from love? A desire to make a positive impact?
That's a good point. Actions over affirmations, I guess. But some of the stuff Dyer describes, it goes beyond even the most optimistic affirmation. He doesn't say for sure what they are, but he thinks it's some kind of spiritual presence.
Evidence of something beyond what we can see.
He even shares stories from his friend Linda, who thinks the orbs in her photos are signs from her deceased son. And then there's that wild one on the cruise where she photographs an orb shaped like a megaphone right on Dyer's hip.
It's definitely intriguing, especially if you're open to the idea that maybe there are other realms out there.
Okay, so maybe it's not about convincing anyone, but just like opening up to the possibility that there's more to reality than we know. And speaking of expansive realities, we got to talk about Dyer's experience with John of God.
Ah, yes, the Brazilian healer. Supposedly does these miraculous surgeries.
With his bare hands, Dyer was kind of hesitant at first, right?
Yeah, but his friend Reina, who's actually a medical doctor, convinced him to try distance healing
So she goes to Brazil, takes Dyer's picture to John of God.
and asks for healing.
And John of God's like, nope, he needs to be taking these special herbs.
Reina gets the herbs, Dyer takes them, and then John of God agrees.
And during the healing, Dyer feels this intense energy, and later his watch supposedly stops for like 80 minutes.
During a scheduled suture removal that's happening thousands of miles away, it's a wild story, even if you're a skeptic.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. And whether you believe in John of God or not, Dyer's experience shows how powerful belief and intention can be. He even sees a connection between the orbs in photos and the healing energy he felt.
Like there's this unseen world always at play, and sometimes we get these glimpses of it.
Okay, we've got orbs, we've got distance healing, and then Dyer throws in past life regression.
Yeah. He goes under hypnosis to access memories from past lives.
And he has this super vivid session where he seemingly taps into a past life that was like full of violence and hardship.
But even in that life, there was this understanding of love.
And Dyer felt this urge to share love, even though nobody wanted to hear it. It's like he's saying this current life is continuing that mission.
It's a fascinating concept, even if you're not sure about the whole past life thing. Could there be parts of us carrying memories, wisdom from experiences beyond this lifetime?
That's a big question. It makes me think about the patterns in my life, the things I'm drawn to, the challenges I keep bumping into. Could those be like echoes from past experiences?
It's definitely something to think about, and I think that's one of the things I appreciate about Dyer's work.
Yeah.
He makes us question our assumptions, be open to things we might not have considered before.
Out of all of Dyer's stories, which one really got to you?
It wasn't so much a specific story, but the overall theme, like even when things are tough, there's always this choice to align with love, trust something bigger than ourselves, believe in our power to change things.
Yeah. And that brings us to what I think is one of the most important, but maybe hardest parts of Dyer's teachings, this idea of thinking from the end.
This is where it goes from like mystical stuff to practical application. He says we have a choice about where we focus our attention. Do we dwell on limitations, or do we cultivate what he calls subjective attention, focusing on what's possible?
So instead of focusing on what we don't want, visualize what we do want and feel it as if it's already real.
Exactly. He believes our inner world creates our outer world.
Yeah.
He even talks about his writing process. When he starts a book, he visualizes the finished product, feels the joy of holding it, knowing it's done.
Wow. So don't get bogged down in the middle, just focus on the end goal. But how do you do that when your reality feels so far from what you're trying to create?
That's where thinking from the end comes in. You make a conscious effort to shift your focus away from the present moment to that desired outcome. Visualize it, feel it.
So if I'm dreaming of a new career, I shouldn't be like dwelling on my crummy job, but picturing myself already in that dream job, feeling the excitement.
Exactly. You're creating this energetic blueprint, and the universe will figure out the details.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this, but honestly, my mind is like a ping pong ball sometimes. How do I train myself to actually focus on the end goal?
Dyer says it's a skill. You practice it. He says use all your senses in the visualization. See it, feel it, hear it, make it as real as possible. And this brings us to another thing Dyer talks about, the power of the subconscious mind, especially during sleep.
Oh, I've always been fascinated by that. Like, our minds are still working even when we're out cold.
Dyer says the subconscious is most receptive when we're relaxed, like in sleep.
Hmm.
So use that time before bed to consciously plant positive seeds. Visualize, do affirmations, gratitude practices.
So instead of scrolling on my phone, I should be like visualizing my goals, being thankful for what I have.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
go to sleep feeling peaceful, not stressed.
Oh, that's good advice.
Because those negative emotions, they can imprint on your subconscious.
It's like choosing between a nightmare and a good dream, depending on what's in your head before you doze off.
Right. He even says, write down your desires, affirmations, put them under your pillow on your nightstand.
Wow.
It's about engaging both your conscious and subconscious mind, aligning them with what you want.
So I'm sending my subconscious on a mission while I sleep, basically.
Pretty much.
But what about dreams themselves? Are those just random, or are they telling us something?
Dyer thinks dreams give us clues about our subconscious beliefs and patterns. He says pay attention to them, write them down, think about the symbols.
Yeah, some dreams feel like they mean something, you know?
They're messages from your subconscious waiting to be understood.
Okay, so maybe that dream I keep having about missing my flight is actually about me being afraid of missing out on opportunities.
Could be. Dyer says explore your dreams. See if you can spot any limiting beliefs that might be holding you back.
It's kind of freaky, right? This whole subconscious thing. It's like realizing there's this whole other part of you working behind the scenes.
And the cool thing is, you can collaborate with it. Give it clear instructions. Empower it to work for you.
Okay, I'm into that. But what about those desires that just don't seem to be manifesting, no matter how much I visualize, affirm? Is it possible some things just aren't meant for us?
Dyer says our desires should feel natural, aligned with our true selves, not forced.
So, not about trying to squeeze into someone else's idea of success.
He uses this analogy of a tree growing towards the sun. It doesn't struggle, it just follows its natural inclination.
That's beautiful. So how do you know if a desire is truly aligned with, like, your soul's purpose?
Dyer says if it feels forced or stressful, maybe it's not the right thing. He says be honest with yourself about what you really want.
So if I'm chasing something that feels out of reach, maybe I need to ask, do I really want this, or am I just trying to keep up with everyone else?
Exactly. Listen to your intuition, that inner voice.
It's like the difference between ordering what everyone else is having at a restaurant versus what you actually crave.
And when your desires are aligned, it's like everything flows. You persist through challenges, you stay positive, you attract what you need.
Okay, that makes sense. But sometimes it feels like the universe is throwing curveballs, not aligning with my desires. How does that fit into Dyer's teachings?
Dyer would say those challenges are actually opportunities, a chance to grow, learn something new.
So not a roadblock, but like a detour that leads you somewhere even better.
He says everything happens for a reason. Trust that, even when it's tough.
Okay, but sometimes it's really hard to see it that way. What about when it's not just a small detour, but like a major upheaval?
Even then, Dyer says we have a choice. We can react with fear, anger, all that. Or we can choose love, compassion, understanding.
That's easier said than done, though, right?
He knows it's hard, especially when you've been hurt or things are really rough.
Yeah.
But he reminds us, love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. It's deciding to extend compassion, even when it's tough.
So sometimes love takes effort.
He says when we forgive ourselves, forgive others, we release those blocks that keep us from being truly happy.
Mm.
He says trying to cultivate compassion. Remember that everyone's doing the best they can with what they have.
So see things from their perspective, but that doesn't mean you have to, like, accept bad behavior, right?
No, absolutely set boundaries. Protect yourself. But even when you need to distance yourself from someone, you can still choose to, like, hold them in your heart with love.
Okay, that's deep. So choosing love is a practice, not just a feeling that magically appears.
Exactly. And that brings us to another big idea Dyer talks about: being present.
Oh man, I am so bad at that.
It's so easy to get caught up in regrets about the past or worry about the future, right?
My brain never shuts off. It's always replaying old stuff or freaking out about what might happen.
Dyer says all that does is rob us of the joy of now.
Yeah, but how do you actually stop it?
He says the present moment is the only one we have control over. It's where we make choices, take action.
It's like that saying, yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present.
Exactly. And Dyer says do things that help you ground yourself in the present. Meditate, breathe deeply, spend time in nature.
Yeah, I do feel more centered when I do those things.
Dyer also says see challenges as opportunities, not roadblocks.
So like a chance to stretch and grow.
Trust that everything happens for a reason, even when you don't know what that reason is.
Like life is a journey, not a destination.
And that brings us to another key point: trusting your intuition.
Oh, that little voice inside.
It's like a compass guiding you, even when it doesn't make sense logically.
I've definitely ignored my intuition before, and it never ends well.
Dyer says trust it, even when you don't know why it's telling you to do something.
So quiet the mind, listen to that inner voice, and trust that it's leading you in the right direction.
And sometimes that direction might be surprising, might take you outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, a leap of faith.
That's what makes life exciting. Embrace the mystery, trust the process, and be open to surprises.
You know, diving into wishes fulfilled, it's really been eye-opening. I'm starting to see how all these different ideas, the power of thought, feeling, the subconscious mind, letting go, choosing love, they're all connected.
It's like seeing the world through a new lens. We're not just watching life happen, we're actively creating it.
And that's both exciting and kind of scary, right? It's like realizing you have this power to create anything you want, but also the responsibility to use it wisely.
Exactly. And that's what makes Dyer's teaching so empowering. He's not just giving us techniques, he's inviting us to step into our full potential.
So it's not about controlling the universe, but aligning with something bigger, trusting that things will work out in the best way possible.
Precisely. And we have that power within us, waiting to be unleashed.
And as we continue our deep dive into wishes fulfilled, we'll be exploring even more of Dyer's wisdom, like practical tools and stuff to help us actually do this, align with our best selves, and make those wishes come true.
It's empowering, right? Like realizing we're not just along for the ride.
Yeah, Dyer would say it's not even just control, it's more like co-creation.
Okay.
We're working with the universe, we're bringing our desires, our intentions, and trusting that the universe is going to meet us halfway, but it's a two-way street.
So we're not just sitting back and waiting for stuff to happen.
Right.
Okay, so we bring the recipe, the ingredients, the universe provides the oven, and I don't know, the baking skills.
That's a great way to put it, but we still got to do the prep work.
Yeah, and sometimes that prep work means letting go of old stuff, like beliefs that aren't working for us anymore, bad habits.
Dyer talks a lot about that, releasing what's holding you back, whether it's negative self-talk, limiting beliefs, even relationships that aren't healthy. It's like clearing out the clutter, making space for new stuff to come in. But letting go is hard.
It is.
How do you actually do that? Especially when it's so ingrained in you.
Dyer has a few suggestions. Forgiveness is a big one.
Okay.
Forgiving yourself for past mistakes, forgiving other people. He says it's not about saying what they did was okay. It's about you letting go of the anger, the resentment.
Yeah, it's like holding on to anger is only hurting you.
Exactly. Forgiveness is an act of self-love.
So we're forgiving, we're clearing out the mental clutter. Anything else to help with letting go?
Gratitude. Dyer is big on gratitude.
Okay.
He says when we focus on what we're thankful for, it shifts our energy.
Yeah, from I don't have enough to, wow, I have so much.
Exactly. You open yourself up to receive more good stuff.
It's like what you focus on, you get more of.
Right. And make gratitude a habit. Keep a journal. Write down what you're thankful for every day.
Even small things.
Even small things. It's training your mind to see the good.
Okay, I like that. You know, life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. Dyer doesn't pretend it is either.
No, he talks about the tough stuff too. The loss, the grief, the times when things just don't go your way.
Yeah.
But he reminds us, even then we have a choice.
Okay.
We can get sucked into negativity, or we can choose to find meaning in those experiences.
Even when it's really, really hard.
Like Viktor Frankl said, the one thing we always have control over is our attitude.
Powerful. So even in the darkness, there's still a choice to be made.
Dyer would say, choose love, choose compassion, even when it feels impossible.
Okay, but that's going to be the hardest part, right?
Yeah.
Choosing love when all you feel is hurt, anger.
It's definitely not easy, but he reminds us, love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. It's about extending compassion, even when it's difficult.
And sometimes it is difficult. It takes effort.
He says when we forgive, we actually free ourselves. It's not about the other person.
It's about letting go of that burden.
Try to see things from their perspective. Realize everyone's on their own journey.
Doesn't mean you have to condone bad behavior, though.
Nope, set those boundaries. But even when you got to distance yourself, you can still choose to, hold them in your heart with compassion.
That's a powerful shift. So choosing love is something we do, not just something we feel.
Exactly. And that kind of brings us to another thing Dyer emphasizes, being present, being in the now. It's so easy to get stuck in the past or worry about the future.
Yeah.
But Dyer says the present moment, that's all we really have.
It's the only place we can actually do anything.
He says find things that ground you in the present. Meditation, breathing exercises, being in nature.
I do feel more calm when I do those things.
He also says see challenges as chances to grow, not as roadblocks. Trust that even when you don't understand why something's happening, there's a bigger picture.
Like zooming out and seeing the whole map instead of just the little bump in the road you're on.
Exactly. And that leads us to trusting your intuition.
That inner voice that sometimes whispers, sometimes shouts.
Listen to it. It's your compass. Even when it doesn't make logical sense.
Okay, but how do you tell the difference between intuition and just wishful thinking? Or fear?
Dyer says intuition feels aligned. It feels right in your gut. And sometimes it'll push you outside your comfort zone. That's okay.
So quiet the mind, listen to that inner voice, trust it's guiding you where you need to go.
And be open to surprises. The universe works in mysterious ways.
You know, going through Wishes Fulfilled with you, it's been, it's shifted something for me.
Yeah, it's a powerful book.
I'm seeing how all these things Dyer talks about, thoughts, feelings, letting go, choosing love, they all fit together. It's like a whole new way of looking at the world.
We're not just passive observers. We're active participants in creating our reality.
And that's both amazing and kind of terrifying at the same time.
It is. But that's what makes it so exciting.
So we're not trying to control everything. We're aligning with something bigger.
Trusting that the universe has our back.
And believing in ourselves, in our own power to make things happen.
Exactly.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Wishes Fulfilled is definitely a book that gives you a lot to think about.
It really does.
And maybe even more to feel.
Yeah.
So big thanks to everyone for choosing this one for our deep dive. I hope you got as much out of it as I did.
Me too. It's always a pleasure to explore these ideas with you and with everyone listening.
And hey, if Dyer's right, and we are these powerful creators, well, who knows what amazing things we can all manifest. Keep those wishes coming, folks.
We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a spark of inspiration. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and check back for more episodes as we dive into new worlds of thought, one book at a time. Until then, keep your mind set in stone and your curiosity open. This has been a Big L Riz Media podcast, where big ideas meet lasting impressions.